Shane? Calling to order the meeting of the Norton Charter Commission. Today is Monday, July 8th, 7 p.m. All members are present with the exception of Denise Luciano. And is anybody other than Shane recording at this time? Okay. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We have, hi. Let the record show Denise has arrived. I said, let the record show Denise has arrived. We have an agenda, but since we have some guests who are so kind as to grace us with their presence and their knowledge tonight, we'll rearrange the schedule and try and get them out of here as quickly as possible, trying to appreciate their time. With that being said, Denise, if you don't mind coming up and having a seat, and I promise it won't be that difficult. I'll start off with a list of a few very simple questions. We'll open it up. People will raise their hands, and if you could just answer honestly to the best of your ability, and if there's anything further that you'd like to address that we did not bring up or you want to mention, you're absolutely welcome to do so, and we would appreciate it.
Okay,
We appreciate your time. Thank you. Why don't we just start with some easy ones? How long have you been in your position?
For this town,
Yes.
it'll be 3 years next month.
Okay. And you've filled this position in other towns as well?
I was the assistant assessor for the town of Wayland for about 6 years.
Got it. Okay. And you have a staff?
I do. I have one full and one part-time.
And you're responsible for hiring them? They report
Pretty much,
They
yes.
report to you?
They report to me.
Okay. And you're comfortable with that process? Managing
Absolutely.
your own staff?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I prefer it, actually.
Good. Just only for my own edification, if you could explain what you and your staff do on a day-to-day basis, and then strictly for my edification,
Yeah.
if you can explain the role that the Board of Assessors play within your department and how you work together, I think that would be really helpful.
Sure. So, ours, well, I have a printout for everybody. I didn't make enough of them, but I'll hand one out to you when I'm done. It kind of gives you an idea of what we do on a yearly basis. Pretty much everything that goes through the town will come through my office at some point. So, on a daily basis, we record all deeds. So if anybody remortgages their house or buys a house, anything like that, whatever gets recorded at the Registry of Deeds, every deed comes to my office. We have to review it and upload it, and obviously, change ownership, do all of that. And we probably get anywhere from 10 to 20 of those a day. And luckily, this registry here emails them to us, which is really nice. And then we upload them into our database. So we do that. We do motor vehicle abatements. Anybody that has sold their car or anything else is eligible for an abatement, depending on when they get rid of it. We process those on a daily basis. Those could be 1 up to 50 a day, depending on the time of year it is. Like January is when the first bill goes out, so that's the busiest time for us with those. We have people coming into the office every single day, looking for plot plans, which we don't really have. Just reviewing property record cards, any other questions they may have. We are in charge of, when anybody pulls a building permit that comes to our office, we put them into our system, and then I go out once a year from spring until they're done. Hopefully, by now. And we probably do about 200 building permits inspections. We also do, well, I do them, the sales inspection, if somebody purchases a house. We go out and inspect those houses as well, because we want to make sure that our database is correct. So we probably do an average, or I do an average about between, I'd say about 400 inspections, which is hard because I have a very small staff, so I have to close my office a lot. The other full-time person will come out and help me as much as she can when the part-time person's there. But this week she's off. She's on vacation, so my office will probably be closed here or there. I had to close it for a while today. And again, I don't have a large enough staff, so I did at one time have 2 full-time people from what I can see, looking back in the records, and at some point it was switched to a part-time. But that's something I really need, is 2 full-time people in that office. Those are the things we do on a daily basis, plus, you know, a lot of other things. The assessors are on a yearly schedule with different things that we do. Right now, we are in certification. So we are doing our cyclical program that's been going on for the last couple of years, which the state requires us to do inspections of properties. We'll finish that up this year. We have my software company doing that, a third-party company. And when we get certified, so we have to be certified every single year. I'm in charge of doing, setting the tax rate. And by doing that, we have to go by what the market's doing, first of all. We have to look at all the properties, what they sold for. They have to be somewhere between 90 and 110% of the sale price. So we have to adjust all the different styles. We have to go into the tables, do a lot of different things. That's a year process by the time we're all done. That needs to be done probably by September, I would assume, so that we can get everything done. From there, we will get everything into the system. We'll do a classification hearing for the selectmen, and at that point, it'll be, the selectmen will vote whether they want to do a single tax rate or a split tax rate, and I'll do a presentation for them on that. Once the tax rate and everything is set.
Just a quick clarifying question. So that is the selectmen's call in the end? You provide recommendations to them? Okay.
Yep, that is at the selectmen's meeting. So what we do is, we usually schedule a day for, I try to do it at the beginning of November. And that we have to notify, we put it in the newspaper, and we notify everybody that's happening. And like I said, I do a PowerPoint with all the information.
So it's like a public hearing?
It's a public hearing, yeah. It's at the selectmen's, so that's public. You can look back and watch those, I guess, at the other meetings. And they're usually done around November, first week in November, I try to do those. So once all that's done, tax rate's set, then come, let's see, probably November or so, my office is in charge of doing all the tax bills, which is, I didn't realize that. So we get the tax, we do the tax file, then we send it down to the tax collector, and they actually print the bills. We are also, and then we do the preliminary bills every July, for July 1st. I do those as well. And then come the next August to September, we will start doing, we'll send out all the chapter land applications for anybody that's in chapter land. They have to fill out the application. It's due every October. We review it, make sure they're still eligible, and approve those. And we also do all the senior exemptions, the veterans exemptions, the senior work-off program, and the veterans work-off program all goes through my office.
Carrie, did you have a question?
Yeah, what are chapter lands?
Chapter land is, for instance, if you have the cranberry bogs.
Yep.
They're in chapter land, farm.
So like,
That could be farm, it can be recreation. If it's recreational, then the public is allowed onto your property. And then we also have
Gotcha.
forestry. So that's 10 acres of continuous land. And recreational and agricultural have to be 5 acres of land. So, that's all that. I'm trying to think of everything that we do. We do so much.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, so, and again, and then we have to approve all the senior work off, all the veterans, you know, like I said, all the exemptions. We need to get all those into the system as much as we can, as long as people put them in. And then we get those processed on their third and fourth quarter bills. I know I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff. Any questions so far?
Can you explain how the board works with your
Oh, the
staff
board.
and how you work?
So
in
what the board
conjunction?
does is they, we try to meet twice a month, and they sign off on any bills or anything that we have. They're in charge of the overlay, so they review that, and they sign off on all the exemptions. They're the last approval. We process everything and have them ready if we, you know, for them to approve them, but they can always deny them if they want to. That's up to them.
Did you say overlands?
It's the overlay account?
Overlay,
The
sorry.
overlay account. So, yeah, so they look at all of those.
And what is an overlay account?
The overlay is where that's the account, how do I want to explain the overlay? That's the account that, what? Yeah, so the overlay, we have to have money in there for the abatements, all the exemptions, and all of that.
So these are things where you may actually have to return funds to a,
So I have to figure out what we would need from the overlay account to keep in there. So again, that would be for all the exemptions that we have, all the abatements, and real estate abatements. If somebody files a real estate abatement and it gets denied, they can file with the ATB, the Appellate Tax Board. At that point, I need to keep enough money in that account for the years going forward,
okay.
depending how long the ATB could take. And I have to keep that in there. Sometimes they might withdraw it. Sometimes it just like I have a few in there right now. So I have to keep quite a bit of money in there in case they win the cases.
Okay. I had a question. You had mentioned the public comes and sometimes wants plot plans.
So we get a lot of questions in my office. Plot plans, for some reason, everybody thinks that we have them, but
Okay.
we really don't. Usually, if it's on a septic system, then the health department might have those. You know, if they're going to be doing an addition or building a property, building a building on the property, usually they're required to have a plot plan by the building department.
Okay. Is there a department within town hall that they're supposed to go to?
No, that's the plot plan. That's something they have to have surveyed.
Okay.
Usually, so it could be it could be recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
Yep.
It's not something that we generally have. Sometimes we might, you know, if somebody's given us one, but we don't collect them for any reason. It's not something we have. They could be in the file in the building department sometimes, but again, that's only if they're doing something new. Like, I had to go get a plot plan a few years ago. I had to hire somebody to do mine,
Okay.
so.
Do you feel within the department, meaning staff and board, there's enough checks and balances?
Within the departments?
Yes.
I think so. Seems fine to me.
Okay.
What do you mean by check? Like, what do you,
Are you comfortable with the level of responsibility that the board has versus you as staff, or say versus the board, not the Board of Assessors, not the Board of Selectmen, and conversely, the Board of Selectmen, are there things, are you comfortable enough with the way the process works?
Yes.
That everybody has the appropriate authority?
Yes, I am.
Are there areas in which you would like to have more authority?
Where I would like to have more authority?
Yes, or your department?
No, I pretty much have authority over my department. So, I mean, I just report to Mike in my board, and then my staff reports to me, so.
Okay. Do you feel you have the tools needed to do your job to the best of your ability? I got the sort of inference that maybe you wish you had two
The
full-time staff still?
is not big enough.
Okay.
I mean, if I had another full-time, if my part-time person was full-time, I'd be fine.
Okay.
We'd be fine with that.
In terms of technology, you have what you need? You mentioned a database.
We're getting there. I think there's a lot of things that could be updated.
Okay.
You know, I would love to see, like, we need a lot of things, that's for sure, to get into the 21st century. We're getting there, baby steps, but yeah, it would be nice.
What are some of the things that would make your job easier? Like,
Well, I think
the things you'd like
as
technology.
a town hall and as a whole, I think, it'd be nice to have, instead of payroll, it would be nice to have a payroll system instead of handwriting everything. It would be nice to have, to do the PDFs. We have that program. And there's just a few other ones that we don't have that we could use on a daily basis.
Can you explain the?
We can't convert PDFs or anything. We don't have that software.
So you, in
Like an
terms of like
ability.
exporting from a PDF into a Word or an
Yeah,
Excel
right,
file?
right. I mean, I have part of it now because of a software that the billing department needed,
Yep.
but as the town hall itself, I don't think everybody has access to something like that. It's all these just normal average softwares that we should have and we don't have.
Yep.
And I know they're expensive, so that's why we don't have them, but it would be nice to have them.
Any other resources or technology that you feel would make your function more efficient?
I think we pretty much have everything that we can right now. Like I said, it's just, no, I think we're okay. Everything that I use, I'm fine with.
In your career, have you noticed any trends in your specific industry that you see potentially impacting your role in your department at some point going forward? Are there any things on the horizon, laws, technology, things that, could change significantly the way things function right now? Are there things that you've heard that other towns are doing differently? Is there a trend towards a specific?
Not so much. I mean, technology is a big thing. I have some of those tools that I was able to get when I came. For instance, I don't use a tape measure. We have lasers.
Yep.
So, which is huge for me. So I have those things, which is great. But not right now, not that I can think of. I mean, there are things coming up, but nothing that I need at this point in technology.
The GSI map, when you go online and go to the assessors database, and are you guys responsible for entering all that stuff in? So like when we go on and see an overview of Norton, we can click on each plot plan.
Yes, thank you. So what we do is, we update those maps every year, and as we're going through, as I'm going through the map, like if somebody calls and something doesn't look right, I'll look at it. If it's not right, then I mark it down to have it fixed for the next year. So those maps aren't right. I mean, our maps aren't right. So if anybody ever finds anything, they should let me know so that I can fix it. And what we do is we have to, with the mapping company, we keep a list, we upload everything to them, they go through and they make all the adjustments. We go through the deeds. As we're going through those deeds, we're reading what the dimensions of the lots and all of that, and if we find that that's incorrect, then we have to do a lot of research and we fix those. My office is in charge of that website. So we are trying to that's one thing we are trying to, that is one thing. We're trying to get all the layers on there for the DPW, the fire department, the police department. We're ready to go. It's just the cost for that right now.
Well, I have to give you credit, because in the last 3 years, it's really a lot better. I go on it all the time, and
Thank you.
you did a great job, because it really wasn't always like that, so.
Yeah,
I give you
so-
credit.
Now that we've gotten the digital zoning map done, that, Paul and Chris Carmichael worked on, that's done, and now we can start doing everything.
So when you mean by like, overlaying with the fire department, you mean like?
So when you go on to the mapping system, on the right-hand side, there's layers.
Yep.
And if you go on to other town sites, they're really nice. So you could go, say, the fire department, click on fire hydrants. It'll show you where every single fire hydrant is in town. Obviously, conservation's there. If you wanted, anything from the water department, DPW, if you had anything up there that you wanted. It's all these different layers. You just click on that one layer and everything will pop up for that. So it's kind of cool. So the one thing I would like to do, I haven't talked to Mike about this yet though, is to do, and this is big in our assessing world, is doing a flyover for the town. You get a nice resolution, and, a lot of people don't want me on their property. It's a lot of trespassing signs, so I can't get on there, so I don't know what's there. When we do this flyover, you do it usually in the fall, winter, when the leaves are gone, and they can get a good view of everyone's yards, and you can go in and look at all different angles. So if I could do that, we can really look at what's out there.
Is this with a plane or a drone?
No, it's a plane.
Okay.
I believe it's a plane. I mean, they might do drones now, but what they try to do is a couple of different,
Serpent's using a drone right now.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so, yeah, I haven't talked to him about that yet, but those are big things that a lot of the towns do, and some towns try to do, 2 or 3 towns will get together maybe and do it together,
Yeah.
just for cost reasons, but I think a few years ago, before I came, a lot of the towns did it around here, but we weren't included in that. So that's one thing that would be good. And that would help not just me, but the building department. It helps all different departments with that. Actually, it could even help police and fire, because you can just go on there and see what's there,
Yeah.
It's a better view than like the Google Maps, because they get in closer,
Okay.
and because Google Maps that I have, it's kind of blurry. I can't really see everything that well.
Yeah.
But I had it in my other town. That's why I know how good it is. It's very clear. You can see everything.
Okay.
So you can't see in Windows.
How often are those updated?
A lot of towns will do them every 3 to 5 years,
Okay.
depending, on the cost, obviously.
Right. Anybody else?
There's a lot of times using like a free travelers. How often have you done it?
We've never done it here.
Never done
Never done it here.
And
I just
Laura-
use Google Maps here.
Yeah, Laura had asked the question if you felt like you had enough oversight. Are there any places where you feel like you've got too much oversight? Or that you have to, like, what struck me as I'm looking at the tax rate, which is probably the most important of those, is if you discuss the tax rate with finance committee, county departments, Department of Revenue, Board of Local Assessment, Bureau of Accounts. and
So when we do the tax rate, we have the state website Gateway. It's called the Gateway. We go in and we have, and all the departments have to do it. There are certain forms that we have to fill out. So we have to do like the LA3, which is all the sales that happen. So right now, we're going into 2020.
Yeah.
When we do our values for 2020, we're looking at all the sales from 2018. Maybe a little bit from 2017, maybe a little bit from 2019. So we have to, when we go through all these sales, we have to upload everything into the state website. The state verifies everything. If something doesn't look right, they bounce it right back to me. And so I have to justify why this value is off. So these are the different forms that we have to send to them. And once that's approved, then I have to do another form. It just keeps going on. It takes about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks by the time we get all the forms in and everything gets approved. So that's why you're seeing all those different, they go to different, and in there, they go to different departments within the state. And they
But in
approve
the
everything.
local government, looks like you do FinCom, accounting and board of selectmen review tax rate.
Well, they don't really review the tax rate. Was that what I said on there? I was doing that real quick.
So if you prepare and submit a recapitalization sheet of the set tax rate
Yeah.
with FinCom accounting, and then go to the board of selectmen. with the tax
So,
application.
yeah, so, like, that will go to the accounting department, like, they have forms that they have to do as well. So sometimes the accountant and I will go back and forth on different things.
I mean, have you ever benchmarked your role against other area towns to see where there are differences? Things that they might handle that you don't, or that you handle and they don't, like roles, responsibilities?
Yeah, most towns have, I'm out doing all the inspections. About probably 95% of the towns have another person doing that. Usually the assessor doesn't do that. They have an assistant. No, the assistant assessor would do that. I don't have an assistant assessor. I have a assessing technician, but that's, I don't even know what that means. She can come out and help me, but she can't do it at the level that I do it at. And I can't have her going out all the time anyway, because I don't have enough people in the office to watch, to take over. So, yeah, that's what, I do 2 roles,
Yeah.
and other towns don't do
A
that.
building permit, something that's commonly done?
We have to do that. That's all for new growth. You need to get out there and see what's going on for the building, because that's where our new growth comes in. I don't do the commercial end. We have our software company do that. They do all our commercial work. We hire them to do that because there's no way I could do it all, and I'm not a commercial appraiser. So they do all the commercial work, I do all the residential work. And it's like mandatory, really, because if you don't get that new growth, then you're not gonna have any money, basically. Yeah.
You have it on here, develop pilot agreements.
So whenever there's so all the solar projects that are coming into town, we have to get information from that company in order to figure out how much the solar pilot would be. So we need to know, like, how big of the project is, if they have any land leases. There's a whole list of items that we need. And then we put them into a formula that everybody in the state uses, and that kind of gives us an idea of what their solar agreement would be. Because technically, because of the old laws in the state, solar is exempt. All residential is exempt no matter what. But because of the laws that they've been trying to change for years, even commercial solar, according to, so the DOR says that we have to pick up all solar panels, any kind of solar. We have to tax them for that. And we do that, but then they go to the appellate tax board because the appellate tax board says that they're exempt. So it's a battle. And we always lose at the appellate tax board, every town. So if we can do a solar pilot and have them at least pay something, then I feel like we're winning. So we try to figure out what the best way to do that is.
So your job is to give a recommendation that people can then go and negotiate
Yes,
on behalf of the town.
yes,
So this is what I think it should be.
yes. By what, all the information that they've given us.
In your experience, do other towns have a assessor in their staff that is dedicated solely to commercial?
Cities, usually just in the cities.
Okay.
You know, like Newton, Quincy, Boston. But local ones usually hire.
Okay. And that process works well?
And that that usually works well. Some towns will have, it's called a data collector. That will be like maybe part-time or full-time. And some of them do commercial work as well as residential. But again, it depends on who they hire and what their experience is and what they're willing to pay, because those are usually commercial or general appraisers, and they're at a higher end. So,
There was one thing you had mentioned, a technician? Assessor technician?
so my full-time person, her title is assessing technician. That's just a title. I really don't know what that is.
Okay.
But she's my assistant. Like, she pretty much runs everything when I'm not there. She does all the exemptions. She does pretty much everything. And plus, she's out on the road with me when she can do it, and it's not busy.
And then the part-time position is more of a clerk or an admin?
Yeah, she's more of a clerk.
Okay.
She basically does all the deeds, motor vehicle, answer the phones, help people at the counter, just things like that. There'll be, a lot of people will come into the counter, and we have to help them out with the maps, because they're always looking to see where the lot lines are and different things like that, so. You know, I always tell my people, when the summer comes, it's gonna be really quiet, don't worry about it. Well, it hasn't been quiet at all. I was by myself today, I was busy all day long. So I think those days are gone. I think the town has grown so much that we're just never quiet anymore.
Does anybody else have any questions for Denise?
Can I just ask if you can put aside the budgetary kind of issues, are there any other changes in our government, in our structure, our processes that would help your job to run smoother or to, in general, to help be beneficial?
I'm sure there are plenty of things that would help, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
So a lot of the issues kind of come down to budgetary needs and.
Yeah.
issues, yeah.
Most of it is. Again, I can't, like I said, this town just it's growing and growing. And I try to explain to people that, people that are coming from Boston can't afford anywhere from Boston to Mansfield anymore, so they've jumped over 495, so now we're here. And the town's just growing and growing, it's just gonna keep coming out this way. And we're just gonna get busier and busier. So, building and building.
Are there any things that hinder your ability to perform your job to the best of your ability, that you think are common roadblocks or things that they would change to make your job easier?
There's a lot of things that hinder it in this town hall. All our everything is just so slow. Our internet's slow, our computers are slow, our computers are old. Everything needs to be updated, to be honest with you. It takes me longer because everything's so slow. You get on the internet, I can't even shut my computer off during the week because it takes 15 minutes for it to turn back on. So I keep it on all week long, and I shut it off on the weekend.
This is 2019, and this is not the 2090. So it's about time that the assessor's office needs to go into the 21st century and need an update.
Agreed, Peter.
It's ready. Denise.
I have one
Yes,
question.
please.
You mentioned, I think this is a hard question to answer, it's kind of speculation, but you mentioned the growth of the town and, you're already doing so much and you're short-staffed and busy as it is. If the town continues to grow and your budget doesn't change and you don't get the things or the help that you need, do you think that you, in your office now, will be able to keep up and do the job that you're currently doing?
Honestly, I think we'd be burnt out really fast.
Okay.
I think we're getting burnt out now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm already 3 months behind on my inspections. So,
Yep.
I'm usually done by now,
Mhm.
and I haven't even started. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions? We very
Yes.
much appreciate all of your information. We appreciate your candor.
Questions, feel free to call my office at any
Thank you.
time.
Yeah,
If there's
thank you.
anything that you can
That was
think
very
of,
informative for me. I appreciate all the content.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks.
if there's anything that you think of that you wanted to mention and missed you, can we just send us a quick email?
I will.
Get in
Thank you.
touch. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Next up, Mr. Units.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're very busy, and I'd like to say we're not going to take up a lot of it, but I think you're a very important role and cog within the government of this town, and I I know I have a fairly substantial list of questions. I'm sure quite a few people do as well. So we'll try and keep it brief, but we do appreciate your time, and thank you for coming in. It's very helpful to us. Thank you. Would anybody else like to start on this round? All right. We're going to start with some real easy ones, some softballs. What do you like about Norton's town government?
I like the setup. When I came here, having the town manager, where I was previously was a town administrator, and the problem in that form of government is the best example I can give. I was looking to have a discipline hearing with an employee one time, and she didn't show up, and so I called up the chairman of her committee, and I said she didn't show up, and he's like, I told her she didn't have to. So in that form of government, you had elected planning board, an elected board of assessors, an elected treasurer, an elected town clerk, and so it was really hard to manage when you had departments that were elected, boards and commissions that would get involved in the day-to-day operation of the town. So that doesn't happen here. The selectmen are more of a policy-setting board.
Sorry, how long have you been town manager of Norton?
8 years.
8 years. And in your prior role, what town was that?
Holbrook.
Okay. As town administrator, was that still considered a strong administrative position, or is it
No,
weak?
a town administrator is not. Town administrator isn't as strong as a town manager position.
What don't you like about Norton town government?
Well, one of the hard things is, as far as town meeting, we have, in my town, we have a representative town meeting. Here, you're getting ready for town meeting, and Michelle will say to me, well, how many copies do we have to make? And I flip a coin, are 1,000 people going to show up, or 500 people, or 200 people? You don't know. At least with the representative town government, in my town, there's 4 precincts, there's 60 per precinct, there's 240 people. That's what you make. So that does help out. You're not trying to guess how many people are going to show up. And then people don't just show up for certain things. They're elected, so they're there all the time. You don't have 1,000 people show up for one issue and then not show up for 3 town meetings after that.
Are all of the representatives, are all of the positions fully staffed?
Are they all?
The representatives?
They are. There's times when they're not, and then they fill them before the town meeting. Each precinct will meet before the town meeting, and if they have a vacancy to fill, someone can come and put their name in and be appointed.
Was there ever a time there was difficulty in electing or getting people to run for those seats?
I would imagine at times there is. I don't know, not, that I didn't handle that end of it, but.
Are there any changes that you would like to see in our town government?
Well, a couple. I think we should have a public works department instead of having a highway department and a water and sewer department. I think we should just have a public works department with a public works director.
Why?
Because you have employees, if you have a public works department, you have employees available to do other things. So if there's something, Keith has something happen to some street, and it's an emergency, there's, was a flood or something, and he needs more guys to help out, You can take people that aren't needed working on wells at that time, they can come over and help Keith working
Snow plowing.
on the road, snow plowing. As it is right now, you have a water and sewer department with separate commissioners, and so people will call here complaining about rusty water, and we have to say, well, you're calling the wrong place. They're a separately elected board that is in charge, so you really should dial 282 and talk to them. I just think having the Public Works Department and putting someone in place as a director, hopefully a civil engineer, would help the town in the long run.
Okay, quick question. Who would that person report to? To yourself?
Yes.
Town manager role? So it would no longer be an elected,
What's that?
it would no longer be an elected board of commissioners, board sewer.
Right, no, just, you wouldn't need a board, just, it would be like any other position in town.
Do you think there is any cost benefit to be gained from a DPW?
Any cost benefits?
Yes.
I think there would be. You have employees that could do more things, and if you hired a civil engineer, hopefully that would eliminate the need to continually hire engineers to do small projects. You would have to hire engineering companies, obviously, for the larger projects, but having someone on staff with that knowledge, I think it would help.
Mike, if I could just follow up there. So what you were just talking about for sharing resources across the DPW, we also heard a little while ago about some software packages, I think, that can sometimes get shared across departments. Are there things that we could do structurally to, I'll say, to better encourage sharing of any type of resources across multiple departments for flexibility or cost savings kinds of reasons that we're not doing today?
We do that as much as we can in here with secretarial staff. If, like right now, the clerk in the building department, where we're so short-staffed in every department, so the clerk is on vacation, so we have a part-time person in the conservation office who can fill in and help out. So other than that, there really isn't that much, that we can do cross lines in here.
And there's nothing that we could potentially change that would allow you to do more of that and have more ability?
No, because technically in the charter right now, I could do that.
Okay.
If I felt that having instead of having a treasurers and accountants, have a finance office or an inspections office where you'd have everyone together. That's something that in the charter right now, I could do that if I had to.
Okay, thanks.
Just on that highway thing, so if you were to, say, make a highway, public works department, how would it work implementing that, like, say, for, like, contracts? Because obviously it's union, you have people right now that are signing the contracts with, say, for instance, I work for the water department, they have a job description of what to do. Would you have to negotiate with them to change to get that, or would it be something that it could be worked because that's the new job description?
You would have to negotiate new job descriptions. And then, you figure out a formula, because water and sewer enterprise accounts, you figure out a formula how much time this person spends on water, how much this person spends on sewer, so you can attribute the costs accordingly. But a lot of towns have public works departments.
And then they would still have, like, obviously some type of, like, form, obviously I can just picture civil engineer being more of an office role and stuff like that. You obviously have to have some type of positions where they're accountable guys that working for each side of that.
Yeah, you would still need that.
You were very forthcoming about the DPW. Do you have any ideas of other things that you'd like to see changed that we have control over?
Just one other thing, right now, the town moderator appoints the entire finance committee. One change I could see there is have a finance committee where the school committee gets an appointment, the selectmen get an appointment, the assessors get an appointment, planning board gets an appointment, and then you could elect 5 people, one from each precinct. I think that would create more diverse, involvement of people in
So
town.
do
people
it as a
elected,
board as
people
opposed to a single
appointed.
person?
What's that?
So appoint a new FinCom
Right.
member as a board as opposed to an individual person doing it?
No, I would not let the moderator appoint the finance committee anymore. I would have those 4 boards have an appointment and then have 5 elected. Just a suggestion.
That would actually sit on FinCom? Okay.
That
Sorry,
would be-
I thought that you were,
No, that would be your finance committee.
got it.
Would, rather than have one person have all that authority.
Could you name those departments again? You know, you said planning.
All the
board.
elected departments, planning, school committee, selectmen, and assessors.
Okay.
So Mike, I think what you just said there touched on one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot in this process, which is sort of the balance between efficiency, which generally comes with sort of single authority, and checks and balances where, right, which can it be and often is less efficient to operate because you need more approvals and more coordination and everything. So within the town manager role specifically, can you just talk for a little bit maybe about your view on that, on things where you think things could run more efficiently if maybe the town manager role had a little bit more authority, or things where, you know, you even, and I've been trying to take individual people a lot of the conversation, so I'm going to say you, but I don't mean you, right?
The position, yeah.
But where you think your role maybe should have some more oversight, even if it's going to make things run a little bit slower, because to your point that you just made with the moderator, maybe it's not something that one person should have full authority over.
The only thing I can think of is negotiations. I know, like in Mansfield, their town manager negotiates the contracts and signs the contracts. Here, you negotiate, and then the selectmen have to approve the contract, so I could be negotiating with the union for a year and then bring the contract forward, and the selectmen could say, okay, now go back and ask for this. And I could say, well, I did that 6 months ago. But so that would streamline some things there.
Has that happened where you've negotiated something and the selectmen haven't approved it?
Yeah.
It has.
So, I mean, because right now it says in the charter, the selectmen, if they want, they can attend, but they can't participate in negotiations. So, you know, that's somewhere there.
And can you have a conversation with them in the process, or do you have to bring the final draft?
Oh, no, I can talk.
Okay,
as we
so
go
you don't
along.
have to, okay.
Yeah. So it's like negotiating with the unions and then negotiating with the selectmen to get a contract.
Back and forth.
So before you go to negotiations, you usually talk to the board directly and ask for like, what
Parameters, yeah.
This is what I'm thinking, what do you recommend?
Yeah, yeah. What are you thinking for percentage and things like that, yeah. And what would you want to change if we could change it in the contract?
Anything else on that spectrum of checks and balances versus sort of single authority?
No, I think everything else is fine.
You good?
I got another one.
No, go ahead, please.
So this one might be kind of philosophical, but you've been running towns for far longer than we've been on this committee, right? So in your view, what really should a town manager be doing that maybe you're not doing today?
Let's see. Well, I know some of the things that we would like to do, but, you know, as far as money, we haven't been able to do it. But Gradually, we have. I mean, when I started here, we had no COA director, no rec director, no plan, well, we had a part-time planner. We shared a veterans agent, so slowly we've been putting some stuff in place. But the big thing that hopefully we're gonna get done now with the money that was approved is we should have we haven't done the town plan at all, you know, and that does hurt us, not having a master plan. You know, it's going by the seat of our pants along the way, and so hopefully, working with Serpent, we get that done, because that's one thing that I've regretted not getting done over these years.
So you don't necessarily feel limited by the charter, but like she was talking about, it's the budget issues that are preventing you from doing things you want to do?
Yeah, yeah. It's been better. I mean, Denise's department's done a great job. Our new growth has, they've really been aggressive in going out there and increasing the new growth. Having the staff that we have now with the planning department and inspectional services, you know, we've been able to go out and attract companies. And the goal is to we're like 14% commercial. If we can increase that up to 25%. Then when Denise comes to the selectmen's meeting on the classification hearing night, maybe they think about a split tax rate. But right now, we have so many small businesses and such a small percentage of the total taxpayers are commercial that it's really not worth it. We're still trying to attract them.
Speaking of like new growth, what do you think are our best options to try to increase, whether it be businesses or commercial land? Like, where do you see us exploiting that type of avenue in town the most?
What, Potter Town?
Anywhere, just how do we get more business in town is what I think the question
Well,
would be.
one of my frustrations is, I know water and sewer infrastructure is expensive, but to always rely on a developer to put in the water and sewer, I think it hinders us. Rather than have a master plan and say, look, we've got this area that's ripe for development. Let's get the water and sewer infrastructure in so we can attract businesses. You know, we just did a water main replacement down Reservoir Street and didn't put a sewer line down there. I just don't understand. I somehow find a way to do that. And the hope was that Wheaton's land on Reservoir was going to be developed and the developer would pay for the sewer line. But hopefully when we do our master plan, we'll identify areas like that and find a way to get money to put that infrastructure in. But obviously the area, the east side of town, near the highway, is the area that's most suitable for development. I would say you're going to look at South Washington, down by the industrial park. There's still some homes in that area. There's still vacant land on Hill Street. And then the Blue Star Park. And then whatever we can do in the downtown with the new, as they do the new village zoning to attract businesses downtown and apartments to get people living down there and utilizing it.
Mike said a great point about South Wash and Norton Commerce. But we did a study down there and it's all like farm, you know, it's country roads, so they actually put a real road in and sidewalks to make it legal. You'd have to take so much land, and then, you know, that's why you got big trucks going down there, but there's you can't put no sidewalks because there's no room. And if you could put a sidewalk, it would only be on one side, and the state doesn't like that. They like to have two sidewalks now.
But like Denise said, a lot of, the companies, I mean, we wouldn't see these people like Alnylam, and we're working on hopefully another pharmaceutical company putting a manufacturing facility in early stages on that, but we wouldn't see that years ago. It's just that it's so expensive in Boston and Cambridge and right around that they're coming out here, so we still have opportunity. And the new growth's important. For years, our new growth was 200,000 or less, and now it's been up around 400, 500,000. It makes a big difference because all we have is our 2.5, and then that new growth helps us so that we can increase budgets by 3% instead of 2%. It's a big difference.
Talking a little bit, since we are right now, about the budget, do you believe, what's your opinion of the budget process? Do you think it works well? Do you think?
It would be the same, I think, anywhere. It's, it just, it is what it is, just people.
Are there any changes you would make to it?
I can't think of anything, anything different. Just hopefully we work through it every year and realize that we only have so much money, and as someone said recently, it's not personal, it's fiscal. Just this is it. It's not.
One of the things I didn't ask, I'm sorry, at the beginning, how many employees do you have right now?
How many employees in the town hall? We could probably count them pretty quick. Overall,
That report to you?
on the town side with police and fire and highway and actually water and sewer does too. That was the crazy thing about the last time they voted not to eliminate the water and sewer commissioners. I got the appointing authority of the director of the water and sewer, so I appoint the poor guy, and he's got to answer to me and a separate commission, so that's hard. But we have about 300, I would say.
Do you feel you have, again, budgetary constraints aside, the tools that you need to
Yeah.
do your job well?
What we really need, and until we probably don't even have anywhere in here to house them, but we really should have an IT director. Other towns can't believe it when I tell them we don't have an IT director. We should have an HR director. Obviously Denise should have another full-time. And we possibly could look at a finance director. A lot of the towns have finance directors now. But those would be three key positions. And then looking at the clerical positions, we have a full-time conservation agent, but we only have a part-time staff person. Really should have a full-time staff. As we're growing and developing more, there's more and more work, and the assessors, they generate the revenue. So if they have the staff and can be out there more, and possibly a grants writer, but that's a tough position to fill because grants are there's a lot of work for little reward a lot of times.
Do you write them now?
What's that?
Do you write the grants now?
I would say the best we have in here at doing that is Jennifer. She does a great job on grants. But we all do a little bit here and there. the conservation, she does hers, and planning, he's starting to do a good job with that. COA, she's received grants this year. Recreation received a grant this year to help out. So just trying to keep everyone aware of what's out there, and then we'll all work together on applying for them.
Mike, you mentioned a minute ago, talking to some of your peers that were surprised that we didn't have an IT director. As you either talk to your peers in other towns or just from your experience in prior areas, are there other things that people in different towns are surprised we do or don't do or have or don't have in the structure of our government? Trying to keep the financial issues aside?
Mostly don't have. Like, I live in a little small town, 10,000 people, and we have 2 vans for the Council on Aging. We don't have, people can't believe it when I tell them we don't have a Council on Aging van. They're shocked. I can't think of, just the IT is always something that some people bring up.
Are there any roles or responsibilities that you have that your peers do not have?
Not as far as town managers. The only difference in Mansfield, and I'm not sure, I think maybe Foxborough, is, as I said, the contracts. Their town managers approve and sign all contracts and all hiring. They don't have to bring, if I appoint someone, the selectmen have 14 days to approve or reject that appointment. They don't have that.
Have you ever had any?
No.
Can I ask a question about, and it's kind of a specific thing, but there's a list of everyone that you're supposed to appoint. And as I was looking tonight, we were talking about interviewing Denise. We saw that there's no assessor listed here. The assistant assessor is listed, but not the assessor. Do you know why that would be?
Is that in the charter?
Yeah, this is the chart. I can show it to you, but it's kind of strange.
Because it,
This is the list of who you're supposed to
Mhm.
appoint. Why that position in particular should have to be
Oh,
working, wasn't-
because
it wasn't-
previously, the chairman of the assessors was the assessor, and the staff person was considered the assistant assessor.
So it's just a title change? Should that be adjusted and updated then?
And I don't understand, well, the Board of Health does the inspector, I see you have that circle, the inspector of milk and dairy, that would be the Board of Health.
Is that a separate stipend that they get for that, or is it just part of his
Just
regular
part of-
job? Okay.
yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's a big job in this time.
Yeah, they go out and inspect all the stores and restaurants. And
Do you see anything else on that list that either needs to?
No,
be
we've
followed or
added,
missing?
the titles, like communications supervisor, and we have, the IT, the HR director position is in there, but just haven't filled it.
So today, who handles HR issues?
Say that again?
So today, who handles HR issues?
It's kind of a combination of me and my assistant and the treasurer's office. The treasurer's office, when someone is hired, they'll sit down with them and go over all the different issues they have to address. I think by not having an HR director, a lot of times it could cost us more in legal because we have to consult with our attorneys on issues that an HR director a lot of times would probably have right.
Well, there's so many people report to you, if they have an HR issue, where do they go?
If they report to me,
Right, all that whole list of folks that report to you, right? They have an issue where they come.
they come to me, and then if they don't like what I say, there is a committee, and the town clerk is, and a union rep and one other person, I forget who it is, it's in the bylaws, or that they would be, review the issue.
So, similar question, but for the IT position that we don't have, if there are IT issues, how do those get?
What we have right now, we have a contract with MX Consulting, so we have a person that handles police, dispatch, fire, and the town hall. They're here 4 hours on Tuesday and 4 hours on Thursday.
Wow.
So we did put money in the IT budget this year, the first time salary, part-time, to get someone in to fill in those other times and coordinate everything, reviewing all the infrastructure. And we just, so Denise wouldn't complain anymore. No, I didn't hear from her. We actually, I heard her talking about the speed. Comcast, we called Comcast, and because when we found it when they were doing the new permitting software. They said, "Why is this so slow?" And they did a speed test, and it was really slow. Like, so we called Comcast, and they're like, "Well, you're on the original internet that there was." It's never been upgraded, so we upgraded it, and then we found there's old switches in this building that need to be replaced. We had money put in there at May's town meeting, so we'll be upgrading the switches to increase the speed.
Probably something that, you know, I'd have to look up. But do you know what we pay MX Consultant budgetary for the year?
Not off the top of my head, but it's probably around 60,000 a year, I bet. In that range.
So I mean, obviously there'd be a little bit more money added, and obviously we're
Right.
talking about expenses for, you know, that benefits and whatnot, and for another town employee. But I can't picture it being, you know, an absorbent amount more money to hire an IT guy and be able to get rid of a consultant firm and just have them in-house and full-time.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question going back to HR? You had mentioned that you think you'd probably actually save money having an HR director as opposed to having to go to town council so often.
I mean, we don't spend that much money on town council. It would save some, obviously.
Okay. Would it offset the cost of the directors? No. Which is why it hasn't been addressed. Okay.
Just one other thing, when you're looking at the charter, something to look at is section 6.5. It's approval of warrants.
Yep.
Because right in there right now, it says the warrants shall be signed or approved by at least 3 selectmen. Under the new state law, one member of a committee can approve and sign warrants.
Okay.
And they do that now. There's one person authorized to sign and one person designated to sign if the official designee is not around. And then they report to the selectmen. So look at that section.
Okay.
So who signed last night?
What's that?
Who signed? A board of selectmen signed?
Right now, on warrants, the chair right now the chair is the designee to be the signatory on warrants, so only the chair signs the warrant and then reports at the next selectmen's meeting about the warrants that have been signed.
So this just hasn't been updated yet.
Right.
Did it used to require 3 people? Is that the state law?
It did require 3 people previously.
Didn't we just look at a charter that it was up to the town manager to sign them? There was no Board of Selectmen involvement?
There are towns that do that.
Okay, so it is not a state mandate that a Board of Selectmen needs to sign it?
No.
Okay. In your opinion, would you be more comfortable?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I could just report to the selectmen at the
Got it.
next.
Perfect, thank you.
And then we wouldn't have to drag someone in here during the day to sign them.
Are there other areas of the charter in your experience that you found information lacking or not sufficient or not
No,
clarifying enough?
Just I always say, I don't know how many places in the charter or bylaws, everywhere where they require you to put something in a newspaper. I'm not, unfortunately, it's sad, but a dying industry, you know. I'm not sure how many people get the paper anymore. I mean,
We don't even have one, technically.
and the state is always reluctant to, they add these other things, well, you can put it on your website, but they always, I think the politicians don't want to get the newspaper industry mad at them, so they never take it out, but they always make you advertise it in the paper, and it costs a lot of money
Yes.
every time we do something.
I'm saying that's the minimum requirement. You can publish it wherever.
Yeah, right. Especially now, people sign up to get automatic alerts from the town website, and so when you put stuff up, if they want certain things, they'd get it, you know. But still got to do the paper.
Couple of specific questions that I found interesting. Why is the town accountant board appointed as opposed to town manager appointed? And do you agree with that?
I think it's a check and balance, just to make sure that the town accountant who oversees all the books is really independent.
So you're comfortable with the
Yeah.
way that is? And similarly, there is an emergency response coordinator that's Board of Selectmen appointed, and an emergency management director that's town manager appointed. It happens to be the same person at this point in time. Is that, those technically two separate roles? Could we have a,
Yeah, like right now, the fire chief is the emergency for a while. How many more days? Emergency management director, and then Ray Cord would be the emergency response. One's paid, one's a volunteer.
got it?
General education question. We've had, I think, some conversations, and I've seen elsewhere, concepts of strong town manager versus a weak town manager. Can you share what, in your eyes, what each of those things are, what those terms mean to you?
A weak town manager would not have appointing authority, I would, and so the selectmen would do the appointing the positions. And that would be the main thing that I can think of.
So you're in a strong town manager role,
Yeah.
isn't that Mr. Clements? And then my only other question, and I tend to ask the same question a bunch of different ways, but if you think back 8 years ago when you first joined, was there anything about the structure of the town's government that either drew you to the role or made you have maybe some second thoughts about the role?
Definitely drew me to the role, because as I said before, I didn't want to go somewhere again where the boards would have more authority than I did with my employees that I work with every day.
Okay.
the appointments for employees, committees, all those different things that you invoice them in, one, do you feel there's like any overlap or redundancies across committees?
Well, it's hard to find people, and the only one I can think of is that we have people always get confused whether we have a historical district commission and we have a historical commission. And that's the one that people always get confused on. And like, no, you don't have to go to the historical commission. You got to go to the historical district commission.
And what was the nature of how those two kind of are folded?
Do you have any idea, Keith? It was before my time, maybe.
Happened more than 8 years ago.
I just imagine at one time people were concerned about the center of town and formed a historical district commission.
To ask Mr. Yell.
What's that?
We'll have to ask Mr. Yell.
Yeah,
Is it staff?
that's right.
Is it staff?
Those are just volunteer committees, right?
Right. Yeah, they're all appointed. I can't think of any others other than those that really are confusing.
Anybody else have any questions?
I think you've answered all my questions at some point or another. Are there any questions we didn't ask you that you wish we asked you, or anything you want to?
It's the Mary gotcha question.
Or wish we would, or anything you want to?
No, I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Are there any trends that you're seeing in town management, in municipalities, things that we should be? I know you've given us a few things to look at, but any other trends that you've noted?
No, just we've followed a lot of the trends, going to the elected town clerk and the town manager form of government. I know in the past, in like where I live, the elected treasurer collector is a bad idea. It's such a complicated and important position. You could be a great CPA, but you don't know anything about municipal accounting, and it's a whole different world. And to think that you're going to have someone in your town that is certified to be municipal treasurer collector is risky. So that it's good that those positions have become appointed. And having appointed positions and elected positions in the same building, it's hard. When you try and put rules in place, and then you get someone that was elected and say, "Well, I'm elected. I don't have to follow any of those rules."
Are there any other positions that are elected currently that you would switch to appointed, that we haven't done already?
No, I think everything else is fine as elected. Okay, cool.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your time. You got it easy. I thought you'd be here for hours.
Well, this is
Just
just the
email me
first of
if you
6
think
times.
if you think of something.
I will.
Later.
Thank you very much.
Check the MX contract. I'll let you know.
We very much appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. We might get out of here at a reasonable time. Going back to the agenda, let's review the minutes of the last meeting, June 24th.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't want to rush you. I'll take a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. I didn't want to be rude.
I want to make sure that you understand what's in the minutes.
Seeing nobody in the gallery, we will close public comment. We've interviewed Ms. Ellis and Mr. Units. For next week, we have a busy session. We've got Renee and Mike from the Board of Selectmen to come and meet with us. We have Chief Clark coming to meet with us, and we have Estelle Flett, who's the Veterans Agent. She actually holds two titles, Veterans Graves and Veterans Agent, I believe. So she'll be here the next session. Do we want to schedule Estelle first? Sandy, do you think? What do you think should be the quickest?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So we'll go Estelle, Chief Clark, and then the board, or do you want to put Chief Clark before the board?
That's fine.
Okay.
My suggestion is put the chief before the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Reason?
I just think it's gonna be quicker.
Okay. All right.
I think he's gonna have, in my opinion.
Can you speak up a little bit, Kevin?
I'm sorry, the chief's gonna have set things that he's in charge of, and he's gonna be able to relay them to us. I think the selectmen we're gonna have more questions for. They're more of the town administrators and,
Okay. All right, we'll take them in reverse order that they are here.
Can we let them know that, just as a courtesy of when they're?
Yeah, Sandy lets them know in what order. They don't have to sit around.
Yep.
They just like to. Okay.
we can, just my question is, we can do both selectmen and selectwomen together, correct?
We did them at the same
Okay.
time the first time, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, they're just there in a panel. We'll
Yeah.
probably just have them sit here. So I gathered together a group of survey questions that we can go through. But I was also thinking, when we invited Mary Steele and someone else, I forget, I think it was actually Estelle, kind of wanted an idea of the types of things that we would be asking. And I think with regards to specifically department heads, our questions are probably going to be, with a few exceptions, somewhat similar. And if it's okay, maybe kind of put together a generic list of questions of things just to send to them in advance to say, these are things that you should think about, that we might be likely to ask. And, you know, there may be other ad hoc questions here and there, but, yeah, to the people that we're going to have come in and meet with us, I think it might alleviate some concerns about, are they being interrogated, or exactly what we would be looking for, and they may not have an ability to answer. And it also will give them some opportunity to think about things where it's not literally in the hot seat in front of a mic and lights and a TV camera. So,
In the list that you have here for upcoming interviews, do we have some that are we filling out more going on after?
yeah,
Yep.
Sandy is taking care of that.
All right.
So,
I don't have to go too far ahead, because I feel like if you ask someone to commit 2 months away,
Right.
things change.
I was just
So-
thinking now that we're kind of getting down the line a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
So my thought was, if everybody, you know, had questions that they had brought for tonight and last week's meeting, if everybody wants to email them to Sandy, she can consolidate them into kind of a single generic list, if that works, unless somebody else would like to take that responsibility and consolidate a list together.
I think it's a good point to give them a few of the ground ball ones we're gonna be asking them, but I think some of them, depending on what they talk about,
Yeah.
we're gonna have follow-up questions for them. I think they need to understand that. I mean,
No, I agree.
We don't wanna be grilling them, and I understand that they kinda wanna be prepared, but, you know, depending on what they say and what their job responsibilities are, I'm gonna have questions based on that, so I can't, you know, we can ask the questions like, how long you work for the town, and, what's your job responsibilities, but I'd like to have some more follow-up questions when they explain to us what their job responsibilities are, and I don't really know what those questions are gonna be right now.
Yeah, I think that's
I think this will
reasonable
help them think
expectation.
about the answers to follow-up questions if they can
Yeah.
prepare. the
I think it would
ground.
just alleviate, a few people have just sounded nervous about coming in and talking with us, and I think
Yeah.
that might help.
Those
No, I
45
agree.
that we use for the information sessions?
Yep.
Those were good starting points, right?
Yes, definitely. And especially for the department heads, how long have you been in this position? Do you feel that there's enough checks and balances? Do you currently hire staff? Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with whom you report to? Those sort of things. Yeah. Are there any trends that you're seeing in your industry? Do you have all the tools you need to do your job appropriately? That type of thing. That would apply to pretty much everybody. Are you okay consolidating the list if everybody just kind of shoots you a list of their questions? Thank you. Okay, these, here, pass them out, I wasn't sure we would get to them. So, I grabbed the survey questions from a bunch of different towns. A lot of them asked the same types of questions, different ways, so I sort of grouped them together. And I tried to make sure that they were all open-ended. There are some we may want to outright eliminate. Maybe we don't want answers to those questions. Maybe we do. There are some that are more direct than others. And then there were a couple of other survey format ideas that I saw that sounded interesting, but I think for now we should probably, unless anybody has any specific desire to branch out into something a little bit more creative, keep it to anywhere from 5 to 6 kind of open-ended survey questions. So taking these sort of in order, like I said, they're kind of clumped into groups where they're sort of asking the same question but in different ways. We can certainly use more than one from each group if we like it. We can feel free to modify it. But out of the first question, it's the first group of questions, it's kind of getting at, basically, what do you think is working and what is not working? And just various ways of asking the same question, changes that they'd like to see, basically in improving the government and the way it operates. Does anybody have a preference for the way one of these or more of these are written?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just, so with our first survey, right, and we're going with the Google format is what we decided, right, last time?
I thought we said the Survey Monkey.
I think it's SurveyMonkey.
Oh, I thought.
Or did we say Google?
Yeah, I thought we said
I
Google
just-
format.
The minutes say Google Docs.
Minutes and my presentation wasn't good. Yeah, that's totally what I remember saying at the last meeting.
Okay, so I feel like for, our first survey, and we want to keep it limited to, we said 5 or 6 questions.
We don't have to, we can, everything is certainly up for discussion.
Well, I think, maybe I missed this, but, what's our theme for our first survey here? Like, what is it we want to get back from them? What do we want to know? I mean, we obviously can't ask them, from the first group and the last group, like, that's a lot in there.
Yes.
I think, so what is it we want to ask them? What do we want them to tell us?
Yep.
Before we can actually pick some questions?
I was thinking along the same lines as what is our goal? What are we
Yes.
going to do with this information?
Correct.
And so thinking about what are we trying to go after here?
Mhm.
And then again, what are we going to do with the information? Because if we get information that says, all these respondents
Mhm.
happen to like X, does that mean we're going to make that change? Does that mean we're going to, like, how specific do we want people to get?
We also have to think about the number of responses we're going to get. if we're expecting to do open-ended questions, that could be dangerous if we get significant response. I don't know if we should expect a significant response, but we might want to think about working in some yes or no questions, things that we can like more easily analyze
Okay.
using the format that we have.
And,
Okay.
and almost like if we have a theme, you know, the theme of our first survey is, you know, what do people know about our local government? You know, what do they need to know more about, or something like that? Then I feel like we can almost have a format for every type of question, and maybe one open-ended at the end, as opposed to all 5 or 6 being open-ended.
Okay.
Because
Yes.
not only will we, who knows what we'll end up with, but, you know, I think you'll get less responses if you have 6 open-ended questions as opposed to giving them options.
Right.
Choices.
It's going to take them longer, and we
Correct.
want to make
And we
it
wanna make
easy
it
for
as simple
people
as
to
possible.
respond.
When you say our first survey?
Yeah,
I
I was-
Are we, I wasn't here when we first discussed surveys,
Yeah,
so
keeping you busy.
are we planning on multiple?
up.
Or is it,
That was my impression. I mean, we're,
Okay.
you know, at the different phases, we're
Yeah.
asking people for different forms of feedback, right? And right
Okay.
now, we're still in the kind of gathering
Got it.
phase. We had our public hearing, and we got like, you know, those 3 general questions. Which was kind of where I thought we were going with the first survey, just trying to reach more people.
got it.
So I guess I was envisioning this being really just, we're looking for just the information gathering. Like, what would we ask in the other phases?
Well, once, you know, we have information from like all the, let's say the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, and we have all this information, and we want to ask people, you know, what they think about the different roles. You know, did you know, town moderator appoints all of FinCom, what do you think of that? Or something along those lines. Like, once we get information, there's going to be stuff that we have to present to them and see what they think about that.
Yes,
There was a-
I think the watch out there is, unless they've been watching all the
Yeah.
meetings, right?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Right.
They only know what they know,
True?
right? They're not hearing all the information
Right.
they're gathering
Right.
from reading from other towns and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
It's a tough question to ask when they don't have all the information to really give them.
It is tough. It is tough, but I worry that, you know, 12, 16 months down the road, we're going to come across the same problem when it's time for people to vote. They don't have the information, maybe they haven't been tuning
But I
in.
think that's gonna be our job, to educate the
Yeah.
community why we made the decisions,
Yeah.
recommendations that we did.
Yeah.
And explain to them where that all came from, right? So I think that'll be kind of what our role is.
Yeah.
The only thing that scares me, I think, about doing multiple surveys, or say at different phases of it would be that, do people get, you know, like, oh, here we go again, another I gotta complete another survey, do we lose interest in if all of a sudden it's, well, did I already take this one, or is this the third one, or the fifth, you know, whichever one it is. I almost would rather see, if we're gonna do 8 questions or 9 questions, I'd rather just have it all on one survey and be done with it. And if we have to progress them in, you know, yes or no questions in the beginning, and then give people, you know, 2 questions where they can kind of explain some of their thoughts, then fine, you know what I mean, so be it. But then it's one survey, like you said, I like some of the yes, nos. I think, one, people will answer because it's easy, it's
Yeah.
quick, they can do it in, if we have something that's drawn out, it's gonna take somebody 45 minutes to do, in my opinion, we can forget it, it's just not gonna happen. So if we have something that we can bang out yes or no questions on it, and get some data and some bar graphs going and saying, hey, this is the percentage of people that responded to these questions, we at least know where the trends are to saying, and this yes or no question, 80% of people answered yes. You know, at least we know where we're at, or the other way around, whatever it may be.
So I'd just be really hesitant about taking any kind of statistical anything out of this, because I can go answer no 500 times tonight, right? And nobody here will know that it was one person putting forward. Right? But if you actually have to type in something, then it gets a little harder to manipulate that way, right? But I guess as I look at these questions, and even the questions that we've been asking in our interviews, there's and not to, sorry for getting kind of consultancy on this, but there's a process that we use a lot of times to analyze processes and organizations and what's going well and what's not, and it's called a stop, start, continue exercise, and it's literally 3 questions. What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? And what should we continue doing? And as I look at the questions, Laura, that you put together here, even as I think back to the questions that we had in the interviews today, I feel like they all come back to those 3 things. So to get something that is short, because I totally agree,
Yeah.
right? It needs to be something somebody can fill out in 5 minutes at the most, right? So some version of, with regards to the way Norton runs our government today, what do you think we should start doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we make sure we continue doing? I don't know. I'm trying to think of what that wouldn't capture that we would want at this stage, right? To your point of really what we're trying to do is get ideas at this point, right? We're trying to collect as much feedback and as much thought as we can.
I like that idea.
Yeah, and I think we're trying to identify issues, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't need to, I mean, if something's working fine the way it is,
Continue.
leave it,
Keep
right? I mean, we
on,
don't
yeah.
have to analyze necessarily every little detail in the charter. We just need to, I think, address some of the major issues in town and see, and that's where, again, the general questions versus the specific, like, do you like this? And if people say yes or no, like you said, based on their experiences, because they don't know of anything different, but then versus giving a general question of what do you like about this, or what do you like about that, or don't like,
Yeah.
and getting that information, and then saying, okay, well, this is how we're going to address that issue. This is how, in our charter and our changes, we're addressing your issues, your concerns, without necessarily, you know, if we don't like their specific suggestion, but if we're addressing the bigger issue, you know, we can kind of fall back on that.
I think too, with these surveys, what's gonna end up happening is we're gonna have, like we were talking about before, is somebody say, well, I don't like this. I don't know what that is, but I don't want this to happen anymore. And I mean, I think that's our job to kind of,
Put it in the bucket.
yeah, well, like, and to say, okay, how do we help fix that type of, thing? Well, for instance, I don't wanna go to a meeting on a Monday night at 7 o'clock at night. Okay, well, that's a great suggestion for us, but how do we, help fix that if that's the overall consensus on where people are going with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's great to get that information in, but then we're gonna have to explain that we took those things in, and now this is what like you said, what our suggestion is to put it out,
Yeah, and I think getting too specific, like I'm looking at some of the questions that these other towns have asked, and I think they're just too specific. You're expecting people to know too much about the ins and outs of government, and they might not want to know. They might, I think it's a really high bar.
that's-
Some of these questions are.
Yeah.
That immediately struck me too.
I mean, let's really think about it.
Sent away.
How many people, if
Right.
we polled right now, and for even voters, but even town residents, have read our charter? I mean, so you're asking,
Right.
you're asking specific questions about the town
And
charter as it is.
it's our job to look at the charter and
Exactly.
figure out how we can fix the issues that, the residents have. So
I mean, I think some of their issues are gonna come out in terms like, well, I went to the town hall and took out a
Right.
building permit and it was a disaster. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's great, but how does it pertain to the charter? I think that's our job to
yeah.
take that and decide.
I don't think that's their job to figure out what in the charter
Exactly.
they
I
would
mean,
change.
I would really, I don't think we're gonna ask these questions and people are gonna come in, well, if you see Article 5 and Section, I just don't think that's gonna happen. You may get a few of them, but the vast
Sure.
majority of them are going to be, well, I hated it when I had to do this in town.
Right.
And those are gonna be the gripes. Rightfully so. I mean, it's,
We interviewed 5 people already, and I think 3 of them brought up the moderator, so we know that we have to, well, that's one thing we have to look at, because most everybody's brought something up like that. And,
Yeah,
I just
finding
add-
where the common themes are.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just add too that I think one of the challenges is, and as we hear, listen to people, and get the issues, is can we try to divert people away from budgetary issues? I mean, we know
Yeah.
we know there's a lot of things we can fix and issues we can change. I think if we can somehow word the questions, budgetary issues aside, what changes can we make? What changes can we make that don't cost us any more money? Because we can't come up with any more money in this committee.
Well, that's a
And
different
honestly,
question,
But
though.
I think we can't eliminate changes or discount changes that would cost more money. I think we need to be thinking about structural versus, like, we shouldn't even be thinking about the money at the moment either. Like, resources aside, how can we set Norton up to run efficiently? Is sort of how I look at it.
Right. I just don't want to get, all sorts of, well, we need all these positions and we need all of these, we need a boat ramp and we need. this and
Right, no,
that,
but we can
getting
get at
into-
what, instead of what positions, what do we need to get done?
Right,
If
right.
we ask it that way,
Right.
we can sort of figure out what, who should have authority over that, and,
I just think the central themes thing, even though, of course, it goes back to your budgetary thing, like even a central theme tonight between 2 people we interviewed is an IT guy. and we've obviously heard it before from other people with technology, but then on top of it, as an HR director, I mean, we've heard it.
I can't believe we don't have an HR director.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe we don't have
As an
IT
attorney,
guy.
that really
No,
scares me.
It's mind-boggling. We only have 8 hours
Yeah.
all week for multiple departments in this day and age, it's unheard of.
I'm just thinking, yeah, from the liability standpoint in
Yeah.
terms of, if there's a allegation of some kind.
gotta have
Who's
somebody-
addressing that?
And I'll
They
be
don't
honest
even
with
have
you.
an office in the.
I know,
in HR.
I know. And we don't have the resources. I know it's not,
Totally wrong.
It's what?
They don't even have an office for an HR person. So you go in front of the tax collector and you talk to him about your business, insurance
Yeah.
and whatever, you're not in private, you should be in private.
I don't think anybody disagrees we need a new
I've
town
never
hall.
seen it.
I mean, on top of, with the HR director, I mean, personally, I work for the town.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to send, somebody who comes and gets hired as a new employee to say, well, what do I do? And then,
Right.
as a union head, I have to say, well, go see this person. And they go over there and they have to go see 3 different people.
Yeah.
To answer the questions that should be done by one person. I mean, well, what do I do about my insurance? Well, you have to go see this person. Well, what do I do about this benefit? Well, and they're rifled through 4 or 5 different committees or boards to try to sign on to certain things that should be done all in one office and, like you said,
Yeah.
private and done. I mean, that's difficult,
I know. But again, that's a resource issue because he's got authority to hire somebody. So, yeah, I don't know. Not much we can do about that one.
Okay, so how do we want to tackle this, well, maybe we should talk, do we plan on doing, I had personally envisioned doing just the single survey, but I'm open to.
I had thought that that's what we were doing too, just one survey, and if people have more that they want to say, they can come or email us and submit testimony that way.
Okay.
Or submit the survey again.
Yeah.
I think we can leave it open. I mean, if there's a time later on.
Yeah.
decide
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
If there's specific things we want addressed, I'm just afraid if we open it up again later, when we've kind of been heading in one direction and we think we know where we are, and then somebody throws us a curveball 3 months from now.
Yeah, I don't think, I don't think we need to, I wasn't talking about one every, month or every other week, of course, but we're gonna be through different phases and looking for different information from the public. We're not always gonna get from a public hearing. So, I think you're right, I don't think we need to decide now, but we can leave it open, and if we keep it as simple as 3, you keep it the simple, like the 3 that you were talking about, just the theme and the topic is different. It might be,
Janie, where I like your idea about maybe a different survey is if we do come up with those themes, those reoccurring themes like Keith was talking about that continually come up every time we interview somebody. And if, as a committee, we decide, okay, these things have to be at least looked at or at least addressed, we can then actually form questions that pertain exactly to Norton. Not an open-ended question, but saying, these are the things we've seen, this is what we were talking about maybe either doing or at least voting on to bring to the town. Would you agree with it or not?
Yeah.
And I understand that we might have to come up with something that eliminates that type of bulk response, so, you in general,
Yeah.
but something that can eliminate 500 people, somebody going off 500 times, so we have, but at least that gives us an idea down the road, is that if we start directing it to a certain thing to address those, we have another survey we can bounce off somebody and say, we're asking you specific questions because these are the things that keep coming up.
Yeah.
That I'd like to do. I really don't want to give open-ended questions at that point, where we start now going off in another rabbit hole because we've already kind of directed it down to these things, but definitely being able to get some information for those things, but we're going to come up with a charter, you know what I mean?
So my watch out, I guess I would say, is that before you address it, moderators, that sounds right, but we don't know the big picture about what the government's gonna look like, right? That may be completely different at the end of all of this. So I guess jump in the ship and ask them a question about, we're thinking about this for the moderator, and then at the end of the day, we end up maybe getting rid of the moderator, or getting rid of,
Well, I think you
you
can,
know what I mean, like, pulling you in from different rabbit holes.
and I think
Are we
asking
putting
the
the cart
question.
way before the horse in this conversation? So I
Yes.
think there's a
I
general
think you're right.
consensus of, if we need another survey down the line, sure, we
Yeah.
can
Right.
do it.
Right.
Right.
But right now, let's do this one.
Yeah,
Right?
agree.
So
I
I don't mean to.
I agree,
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah.
Just to throw this out here, not to muddy the waters, but if we were interested, Amherst did do a second survey at a certain point along the road. And what they did was they listed various components that they were considering and just simply asked, do you like it? Yes, no, or not sure. And it was as simple as, again, I'm a little reticent in you know, if somebody sees something they don't like and they want to stuff the ballot and they can get all their friends and, you know, then we've got skewed data.
Yeah, you can fix that though, right?
But,
IP addresses or something?
no, unfortunately not. But it is something to consider, so. Do we want something as simple as, not that it's simple, but as.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's the whole
As
point.
efficient
I really like Dave's idea.
as Dave's
I mean,
suggestion.
that's sort of what we did in the public hearing,
Yeah.
right, the three questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think we can refine those three questions,
Yeah.
but would you be okay then, because you had said you wanted some closed questions, would you be okay with just three open-ended?
If it's just, yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe we can also ask a little bit of background information, are you a board member, are you a, you know, just get a little demographic information maybe, just to kind of see who's answering? Kind of
I
response
think
bucket.
I would make that optional.
Yeah, I would think people would
All
think
these
maybe
questions are
they're,
gonna be optional,
That's
right?
fine.
or they might think, you know, well, my vote may not count as much if I'm only a constituent as opposed to an employee, or,
Good point.
I think all the questions in my mind would be
Yeah.
optional.
yeah, we can't force everybody to answer, you know. We're not going to put little asterisks next to everything, you can't continue unless you've answered them all.
So, I'd volunteer to basically just put together a demo
That'd be
site for us that we can review at the, probably not at the next meeting, given how stacked that agenda is with interviews, but, I mean, it takes, like I said last week, my kids can do this stuff, so I should be able to figure it out. So I'll put something together based on some of these ideas, and then send it out to everybody to review ahead of time. We can talk about it next time we can fit on the agenda.
That'd be great. Probably, we'll put it on next week's, or the next meeting's agenda, time permitting.
Sure.
In case we wind up going until 10 o'clock again. And otherwise, we can just table it, although we do have Plymouth on next, yeah, we're busy. We're very busy. Okay, so let me just give a quick update, if you don't mind, on Weston. It is was on the list for, I think, last week, and we had some questions. So I talked to Lauren Goldberg. I also talked to her about the survey. There is no issue with the survey being anonymous. The only thing that she had mentioned is if we do it like as a hard copy, a PDF, and they have to email it back, the email then becomes public record, and it is no longer anonymous. It can be associated with them. So ideally, it would be a separate system so that people can remain anonymous, and there's no issue with that. The other thing I talked to her about was the town of Weston. Sandy had passed out that what we were trying to figure out whether or not it was an actual charter. It is not, in fact, a charter. And when I asked the question, does Weston have a charter? Her answer was, and I quote, "Weston does not view itself as having a charter." Which I'm like, it's such a lawyer answer. So what they have, so according to, apparently she's worked with the town, they actually did form a committee at one point to determine whether they wanted to establish a town charter. They determined that they were not yet ready for a charter, but they would like to transfer authority to the town manager. And they did that with a special act, and the special act amends general law. And it is, so you'll see the number, it's like general or special act number 310. It applies specifically to Weston only. And they've amended it a couple of times over the past few years. But that's all that piece of paper is doing, is essentially moving authority from some other place to the town manager to give the town manager more authority. So in reviewing it, I don't think it's going to, please read it. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about it unless there are any questions or something we see in there that we might like for our own town. But that's for just clarification purposes. That's where we are. And then the next full charter that we are going to read is Plymouth, which I believe is actually considered a special act town charter. Oh, the other interesting lawyer thing that she had said was the special act that amends the general law is not a charter, but it is a difference without a distinction.
Yes. It's still serving the purpose of a town
Okay.
charter.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So it's basically what you want to call it. Not a charter. But Plymouth does have a charter. They have a special act charter, and it'll also be the first charter that we'll look at that has a different form of town government than we do. So they have a representative town meeting.
Can I ask a quick question as I flip through this a little bit? They have
Which
a
one?
Plymouth.
Yep.
They have
Is
a
it
bunch of
redlined?
sections that have been crossed out, amended by Chapter X of the Acts of 2012, Massachusetts General Court, and deleted by a different chapter. And do you have any context as to why that is or what that is? There's got to be a dozen different sections in here.
This is actually what's on their website.
Yeah, and the Weston one looks the same
so
way.
this is what was deleted and this is what was amended.
Right,
That's
but
what
I
I'm
guess
looking at.
yeah, but my question is more like, do we know why the Massachusetts General Court would have seemingly struck so many sections of this?
Because
charter?
this was done by the special act, so I'm guessing chapter 385 of the Acts of 2016 was the special act requested by
Okay.
Plymouth to amend their special
it.
act charter.
Got it.
And
So-
it just illustrates what the changes were. So it used to be 2-4-6 was this.
Okay.
They deleted this and changed it to this.
So it wasn't that the Massachusetts General Court said, no, you can't do that, and they struck it.
Correct.
This was, they made the change
Yes.
pursuant to that.
So the
Okay.
general court just approved
Got
what
it.
they asked for.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So why, just a quick question,
Yep.
why would they leave those changes in here? Just so people
It
can
could,
see them on a...
it could, yeah.
So
It
like,
sounds
this
like
is
Plymouth just decided to leave the red line
Just to leave it in
copy
there, okay.
They left the track.
If you look at Weston, Weston did the same.
Yeah.
So Weston's is redlined as well.
Okay.
Do you think they can't physically take it out until they've got approved by like the town, like, say, I don't know, like, town meeting or what,
I don't know, the
They
Weston one
probably
was
had
done a
to
while
approve
ago.
it locally first, and then the state rep and senator asked the general court to approve it in both the House and Senate. Is how it's usually brought forth by the local rep.
Yeah, if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, I think if you go to Mass General Law in that specific section
Yes.
for Weston, it actually still looks redlined even there.
I can't even speak to the update, the
Okay.
technology.
Okay.
It's much better now than it was when I was in the State House.
Do we have action items?
Dave is going to do the survey
Okay.
for the next meeting, right? Is that
Yep.
enough time?
Do you want me to consolidate the general questions for the department heads? I don't mind doing it.
Yeah, either way.
Okay. I think that was it, right? All right. David Wren's not here at the next meeting?
I may not be. I have work travel that week. I'm trying to figure out the exact date.
Okay.
So I'll let you know.
Anything else anybody would like to discuss?
So you want everybody to send you questions, correct?
Yes, that'd be great. If you could just send me the list of questions that you had for the board last week, and who else did we meet with? Was it just the board?
So what do we send you?
So we're sending them to you,
But are we
not-
specifically looking for town employees, not boards, right? At this point?
I think in terms of boards, we're probably okay. We'll probably ask them similar questions to what we had to ask the Board of Selectmen with, maybe a couple of, do you feel you have an appropriate number?
So is this just for now focusing on employees, though, you think?
Yeah, probably, department heads.
So we're sending new questions that, like general questions that we want to ask from in before us? that we-
Yeah, and I'll just consolidate them and, you know, put them into sort of a generic list that Sandy can send it out.
Is there a deadline by which to get you the questions? I like deadlines.
Okay, we had,
Well, Estelle's coming to next.
yes, we did have Estelle coming, and Estelle was concerned if I asked for them by the end of this week. Is that
That's fine.
reasonable? One other thing, Carrie, you were gonna send me a question that you wanted me to ask Lauren Goldberg.
Did I not do that?
You did not.
I am going to look at my notes and do that.
Okay.
I had a deadline. I think I had a deadline, and I probably...
I did not give you a deadline, but my problem was is that I knew you had a question and
I will...
I could not
It was
really
from the
address
meeting we
it.
did at the library.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
it had to do with the bylaws and when did how the bylaws get changed or when they got changed
Yeah.
and so
I think since then, I've figured out that
Okay.
we'll just put it in the charter, like when they
okay.
change it.
If you're fine, then that's
Yeah.
fine. I'm happy to follow up. She was very nice. She's actually really good about even texting,
Yeah.
so great. Okay. Anything else anybody'd like to discuss? I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
I-